I had this idea a while ago. I was actually thinking about this when I was at EWC in Riyadh, the World Championships for StarCraft 2. And I wanted to chat with you about it. We chatted just a little bit earlier today. I'm like, you know what? We should just do this on stream, and because this is an interesting conversation. But like, okay, so here it is. Basically, this is what prompted my thinking about it. So I think that the volatility is too low in StarCraft 2. It is too likely that the better player will win because you have to have a certain amount of upset potential or it becomes very bad. So to put this in perspective, back in the day, like Quake 3 tournaments were really kind of crappy because the best player always won, and like the top 4 guys were always in top 4, and the top 8 guys were always in top 8, and the top 16 guys were always in top 16. And it was the same people every tournament finishing in almost exactly the same spots. And it's just kind of like a little bit anticlimactic. And I feel like StarCraft 2 has almost gotten there. It's not exactly what Quake is, but I think the volatility is too low. Like if you look at Serral win rates, for instance, I think it makes a little bit of boringness. And something like, I know that Tasteless for sure, he didn't like it when Flash was in his prime in ASL because it was so obvious he was going to win. Now, Flash's win rate was like a bit over 70%. And I just had ChatGPT do some math for me. And it was like, okay, so if you're in a best of 5, which is, well, we've actually expanded a lot to best of 7s in Brood War, but back then it was best of 5s. But in a best of 5, if you have like, let's just call it a 70% win rate, going into a best of 5, you're going to win the best of 5 like over 82% of the time. Now look at Serral; he's got like a win rate that I believe is even.
I heard this is
something like an
someone wanted me to watch this.
So if you go into,
so I said sure, why not?
Best.
It's basically this is Artosis's and or this video. I guess it's both Artosis and Noregret. They're talking about how to shake up Sc2, and they haven't said anything yet, but I'm curious to see what they're going to say. All they're talking about right now is that games in the past, and you know, they're explaining that like people, when people win repeatedly, it's boring, and I don't disagree with that. I think when you see someone win every single time, it's cool that that person wins so much, but I feel like if it happens to the point to where like that's just what's going to happen every time, it is fucking boring. It's super boring.
Of a best of 5, or well, here's the thing, in StarCraft 2 it's even more, right? So here I'm just going to type in, because the math I did was for a best of 5, so I actually need to do it on so in a best of 5, if you have an 80% win rate, you're going to win the best of 5 94% of the time.
Makes sense. I think
so that's, but so basically my thing is, I think that that's too much. I think that that win rate is too high, and it actually detracts from the quality of viewing. And it's not that, it's like you need a certain amount of randomness. So yeah, well, let's get some of your thoughts first, and then I'll give some more mine. That was quite a preamble there.
Well, first off, I don't disagree, obviously. I think one of your more interesting points or perspectives was around the uncertainty that, I guess, the StarCraft grew more certain with time. People became more, or rather, they became better mechanically.
96.6% to win a best of 7.
Yeah. I mean, they came back.
Obviously, I just want to throw one more thing. I'm so sorry. One more thing, because I already know what like the YouTube comments would be. Well, I mean, it's not. He doesn't have 80% against Clem. Yes, I know. This is just like some general math to kind of show how crazy the win percentages are. But go ahead.
Okay.
Oh wait, one more thing. No,
okay.
Sorry. Okay.
All right. So yes, there isn't very much volatility. I think StarCraft 2 has become quite figured out. I remember when I played, because I played from the very beginning. Over time, especially towards when I was starting to get better and better, I realized there were very few actual options in StarCraft 2 in all the matchups. Like you would think, especially as a viewer, that there's way more opportunities to do things that are unexpected, or there's way more opportunities to do like upsetting actions in a StarCraft 2 match. There really aren't. You'll notice that some of the best players are not that very many. They're not very many cheeses. Even 12 pull against Hatch First, for example, does not work. Like that does not kill even when you do the drone pulls, sometimes they still are able to hold it. And yeah, people like Serral, they're able to defend basically everything. They go into a late game that they know they're favored in because they have the most experience and are the best there. And you basically get the same outcome over and over and over again. There really isn't very many ways to punish a predictable playstyle, right? Normally in StarCraft, if you have an expectation that someone's going to play a certain type of way, you should be able to combat or abuse that. That's not really possible anymore.
Yeah.
So, for example, knowing Serral will be greedy does not help you, right? Or knowing Serral will play a certain type of way, you can watch Serral's replays, does not help you, really.
Yeah. Actually, I believe it was at the last Katowice I casted. Creator went up against Serral, and I was actually betting on Creator to win because his PVZ was top of the world PVZ at that moment. And he actually did like a charge lot all in that Serral completely didn't scout, and he still held it.
Yeah,
he
you'd be surprised.
Completely was not ready. And he like dragged a couple zealots in the wrong direction with the roach and held it, and it was just like, well, that seems silly.
And then if you include a best of 7 or best of 5 factor like you are, even in the weirdest case where you have like this crazy build no one's ever seen before that works, you get 1 game.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
One
cool.
game.
You're still absolutely screwed against Serral.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And it's not that it's wrong that the best player wins, but you actually do have to give some sort of balance. And I think that team games generally get a better balance because there's so many factors into it, whereas
team game, exactly. Team games have more variables. There's no variables in 1v1 when someone plays so much that they can map out every detail of it. And if the game allows you to create a situation that's repetitive, and then like if you're the kind of player that literally is like, the longer the game goes on, the more likely you're going to win. If you're like, if you're confident in the fact that your ability is better than your opponent's, and if that's also a truth, it's not just like your opinion, but if you're genuinely a better player than your opponent, the longer the game goes, the more likely they're going to make mistakes against you because more things become factors and variables that they can just take advantages over you with. Then you can win, but you can't control your teammate in a 2v2. So your teammate like can be also the best player, the second best player in the world, and you could lose the 2v2 because you and your teammate are not like on the same wavelength for a certain part of the game because something's happening, and it's like you have like your own problems you're dealing with, and it's suddenly like, oh wow, so many more variables are happening. Like team games are definitely always going to be more interesting, I feel like, just in the fact that it creates more problems because there's just so many more factors there that can be happening at once. 1v1 is definitely like very mapped out repeatedly because you don't even like the thing about StarCraft 2 1v1 is a lot of times you don't even need to scout someone to tell what they're doing in the early game. You can literally tell what someone's doing in the early game by physically not seeing something. You can be like, oh, they're not doing this right here, so I now know what they're doing. Like, oh, this person doesn't have a natural. Why don't they have a natural? Because they have gas. Like you can also rule it down even further than that. Obviously, it's not like that simple. You could just be like, oh, he doesn't have gas, and the only thing that could kill me is this build. Like it could be like a Stargate Rush. It could be like proxy type shit. Like you can rule builds out super quickly, pretty fast, and also prepare for defenses for what is like left, and then that you can narrow that down to like one thing a lot of the time.
Versus one game, you have to be more careful about it because when it gets too stagnant like this, it can be a problem. And a couple thoughts as well is at the beginning of StarCraft 2, we started off with like best of 7s. At that time, we had only ever had best of 5s in Brood War. And I was like, this actually makes a lot of sense to me because back then, StarCraft 2 was much more volatile than Brood War. Now, over the years, as it's gotten more figured out, and especially because of the worker increase and the 2-player maps only, the volatility has gone so far down. Brood War is actually more volatile now than StarCraft 2, which is kind of wild. But that's kind of what you're seeing. I think there's like quite the difference there. And I mean, Brood War has its own issues. We've gone to so many best of 7s now. It's like, which is reducing volatility. It's like a best of 5 is just kind of a more exciting thing a lot of the time, even though I want to see more games. As someone who just studies, like I like having the best player win a lot, but like, yeah, I feel like this is an issue with StarCraft 2, and I think it really, the worker increase did so many bad things to StarCraft 2, but this is a big one, and only having 2-player maps took out so much. It took out so much because you can just go scout exactly when you want to scout.
Yeah.
You know exactly, you can, for whatever decision you want to make, you can just send out your scout to see it in time.
Yeah. Like, also, you think about the units that StarCraft 2 has. So, like, for example, Reapers, we've got hallucinations, we've got faster Overlords, right? Like, Overlords are pretty fast. We basically have infinite vision, really. And we're also so good. Like, you can see the pro gamers and better pro gamers than me at basically immediately calling out a build based on what you see. So, like, for example, you absolutely can count resources, basically. Like, you can tell that buildings are not where they should be very quickly in StarCraft 2 at this point.
Yeah.
We've played so many games now that missing minerals isn't a thing anymore, right?
Yeah.
Like, when the earlier back you go, the harder it was to actually be certain that things were missing or that builders were on time or whatever, because they really weren't that refined. But now, with more refinement means you
it's also a product of time, honestly. Back in the day when like his and No Regrets era, which is also the same era as my era, like back in like Wings of Liberty, early Heart of the Swarm, you didn't really have a meta that was so stagnant for so long because the game never changed. So like things were like shaking up the game overall. There would be things that would get patched into the game, things that would be broken, things that would be nerfed, things that would be changed, things that would be buffed. You would literally get like game breaking different changes added to the game. Like for instance, one thing that got added to the game was the very first time someone was like, oh my God, you can literally build fucking pylons or bunkers right at the base of the ramp and block them in. And this works really good, especially against Zerg players. And then suddenly the meta breaks and everyone's like, oh, fucking just bunker rush every Zerg player and just block them in their base. All I got to do is get 2 SCVs at the right time, sneaking them in. And then like Zerg players are fucking paranoid as shit and patrolling drones at the bottom of their ramp, trying to not die every game to that cheese, because it's always a possibility, and it's like right off the bat. And then suddenly the game gets patched and they add destructible plates, destructible rocks, destructible debris, whatever the fuck they want to call it on any different map. And it's like they add little like unbuildable terrain that is, you can walk over it, but you can't build on it. And it has like 400 HP. So an SCV is not killing that before a spawning pool is done. And then they added that to the game. And that suddenly was like the fix to that kind of a thing. And it's like things like, I'm not saying that's the only thing, obviously, but things like that grew through the game early on, and the game went through phases. The game went through phases of like a new unit being added to the game. Like when they first added fucking Widow Mines to the game, when they first added Swarm Hosts to the game, when they first added Disruptors to the game. Like all these units can like break the fucking game.
basically know exactly what they're doing.
These units can like break the game. And it changes everything, and you got to like invent like the fucking your strats, and like how do I not die to these things, but also create something that's like super efficient. And now the game has been in such a state where like nothing has changed for such a long time. Realistically, like not much has really been going on in the game to like really shake it up very much at all. And it's super fucking mapped out. It's super like people have been doing the same shit for such a long time now that it's the amount of time that you have had to refine the builds is so fucking high that you don't really even like have to use your brain anymore if you've been doing it for a while. Like it's literally like second nature. Like I again, like I'm someone that doesn't even really play StarCraft 2 now for like the last 2 years. I play very little every now and again, and I can still fucking log in and do builds that I was doing, and they work completely fine. Like nothing is different. And it's like it's not even like my builds still work. It's like my opponents are doing the exact same shit that they were doing before too. Like they're hitting the same timings they were doing before. Like I can still, against every fucking Protoss that goes Stargate first with like a third base, I can still every single time be like, I'm going to make like 16 lings right before my speed's done and go deny your third. And then it happens like, it works like every time. Just, you know, we're not obviously not talking about like, I'm not doing it against like Showtime or some shit. Like some top tier Protoss that's like a pro gamer because I'm playing in a tournament. It's obviously just a ladder game. But like these things are going to happen if the game never changes. So if Artosis is about to be like, I feel like I haven't even watched the whole video, but I feel like what's about to maybe be said is he's going to say we should just start with less workers in the game. I don't think that would be a bad thing. If something changed up the game and made it way different, one way you can absolutely do that is fuck with the economy in the game. 100%. Fucking with the economy changes everything.
Yeah, that's another big difference, I think, between Brood War and StarCraft 2, where in Brood War, like, there's a lot of trade-offs that you have to make with how many workers you have, how much attention you're giving to optimizing your economy. it's more easy for there to be missing minerals or hidden things going on. Also with the scaling of how mining works in StarCraft 1, like you get many more resources, whereas you know exactly how many resources are coming in StarCraft 2. It's like very, very straightforward in that regard. I feel like too much has been done in StarCraft 2 that is like, this is what the pro gamers want,
exactly.
so this is what they get.
Absolutely. There was way too much balancing. So I feel like the Balance Council looked at two different things. They looked at, and I'm talking like from the very beginning, there was a lot of balancing around removing RNG. There was a lot of balancing around removing inherently random things like 4-player maps. We were talking about this earlier. We had them. They are gone now. Even gold minerals and gas, like we play around with them, but every now and then pro gamers decide basically that they don't like it anymore. And Blizzard's like, okay, or whoever chooses the maps slowly removes them. All the really fun maps get banned 24/7, right? Like we never see fun maps. Nobody wants to play them. So I don't know. It's kind of sad. I wish there was less pandering to pros and more pandering to the audiences. Yeah. I think having randomness or things that you.
By the way, like I completely agree with what Noregret is saying again, as well. I feel like. A pro gamer is going to want something that's going to give them a high win percentage, and a fan is going to want something that's going to give them an entertaining experience. And honestly, I feel like esports would be better off if you did something that's more entertaining, within reason, obviously. I don't think anybody can be a winner. Like, it's not like you just show up and it's like, well, it's not your turn to win because the random gods didn't pick you. But I definitely think having to deal with more chaotic things should be a real thing in pro gaming. I don't think it should always be like a linear map every fucking time you play, where it's like, I'm going to do this map, and now on this map I know exactly what's going to happen every single time because I do it every single time and it works every single time, and this map is like guaranteed to make that work for me. I think having exact fucking like parameters that you can play inside of is fucking boring. I think having maps like that every once in a while, like mixed into the map pool or into the rotation, are fine. And I think if that's part of a series, that's fine because you get to see who plays more standard, better, stuff like that. I think that's totally can be fine. But I definitely think you need more interesting dynamic inside of pro play. And every single pro gamer will be super averse to that because nobody wants to go to a tournament and be like, are you fucking kidding me? I lost because of some stupid shit like that I can't even really control. Like, this map is just so fucked up. But at the same time, it's like, it would be more interesting for everybody to spectate that and to be a part of that. It would create more dynamic things in the game that would be like just cool to watch. So I agree with what Noregret's saying 100%.
You need to be careful about doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to lose. So like, for example, if there's something that's random, you just need to account for that randomness.
I think pros just have to like grow a pair and just fucking play
for example,
interesting
have
shit.
To play safer if an all-in can work based on RNG or whatever. Like, I don't know. I just don't see that removing RNG is a positive thing in any way.
Yeah, you do need a certain amount of it. It's like really important. And believe me, I mean, I know how bad.
As a viewer, I feel like that would mean the winner did not win for a real reason. But that's why you have to, I feel like adding RNG to matches within reason. Like, obviously, it shouldn't be like, let me give you something that's not within reason, okay? I don't know if you ever played PUBG, but PUBG had something called a red zone. And a red zone was a random area of the map that just spawned like a circle there. And anything within the circle is like prone to, or it has potential bombs that just get dropped on the ground there. And it could one-shot you. Like, you could be in a fucking car driving through a red zone and it just blows your car up and you're like, oh, I'm dead. Game's over. Like, I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, we should have red zones in StarCraft 2 and they can spawn inside someone's main base. And you're like 34 seconds in the game building your supply depot and a red zone spawns over your base and all your SCVs die. Like, obviously that's not within reason. That is absolutely not within reason. Or like a volcano erupts and it just spews lava all over your base and you just lose the game. And it's like, oh, well, it looks like I'm dead now. Not within reason, obviously. But other things absolutely can be within reason. And like something they already brought up a minute ago in this video, like 2-player spawn location maps or something more than that, like a 4 possible spawn locations. I feel like that is within reason spawn locations. You can definitely get some cheesy games out of that, but at the same time, you can also get more interesting games too out of that, depending on where spawn locations happen. Like certain times, like if you have like super far spawns, suddenly builds with like air units and mobility can be better. And if you have builds that are close spawns, suddenly like all-ins and rushes can be better. Like, it does create more diverse gameplay where you don't just have someone who just has one fucking build that they show up with and they're like, time to send it up, time to send my build and just do it. And I can never die because my build is foolproof. Like, it's RNG does make a game more interesting. I 100% believe that.
Sadly, it hurts when you lose a very important match to something that's a little bit out of your control. Like it's a terribly painful thing and everything, but it adds to that excitement. It adds to that volatility, which gives you differing results and makes things exciting and makes people feel like there's a chance something else will happen. And I just feel like that's at like an all-time low right now in StarCraft 2. The thing is, you want the best players to win the most. Obviously, you don't want it to just be coin flips. It's not gambling, but there should be a way to gamble as well inside of the game. Like it's something I feel like we're seeing all over the place too. It's like the more that you listen to people's opinions on how to do something, the worse things are.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be taking opinions. You need like someone strong just being like, no, this is what we're doing. Like in ASL, they don't give a shit that you don't want to play on some of the worst maps you've ever seen in the pro circuit. Like they'll just be like, no, this crazy ass map is in there. We've had maps that have 0% win rates in certain sides of matchups. Zero. Literally zero. It ruins sometimes a season for a race, but you know what? It keeps it actually very fresh. Obviously, that's the crazy far example, but stuff like that can and has happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of the worst, most hated pro maps, what was it? Dawson Station, you remember that one?
Yeah.
People loved games
yeah.
on Dawson. Those were some of the most fun games I ever casted.
No, I agree.
I played the map too. Wasn't fun to play.
No, I agree.
But very oftentimes, the maps that are not fun to play are the most fun to watch.
I agree. Yeah, I think it was a mistake to pander to the way pro gamers want. Because if pro gamers could, like, I think if they could remove all RNG and have a dialogue tree, which, by the way, I don't even know why pro gamers like this. Like, I personally don't like having basically a certain type of way you have to play because it's the only valid way to play.
Yeah.
And I remember getting burnt out in StarCraft 2 for the very first time in my entire life, after I realized like Ling Hydra Bane openings were like the only option at some point.
Yeah.
And it was super boring. Like, it was just like, oh, I'm going to do this Ling Bane tack. If they hold it, I lose. If they don't, I win. And that was like the only thing we were doing for a while. Like, it just sucked.
Yeah.
So
I don't know if there's a way to fix this at this point, because
they need to start doing crazy things. Like, they could do it. Like, they could fix it by like saying, all right, we're removing this unit, we're adding this unit, 4-player maps are in, and fuck you guys.
Yeah, well,
but that will never happen.
The big problem is, I think right now, is that you have that balance council, and the balance council is completely biased. They're putting out a lot of changes that don't make sense. It's very obvious it doesn't make sense. You know, like it's like you're nerfing Protoss. Like, what? What's going on here?
I'm not gonna lie. I actually liked the patch simply because it changed things. I don't even give a fuck. Like StarCraft 2, I agree. I also got bored of StarCraft 2. I got super fucking bored. It just was not doing it for me as much as it was in the past. And when I read the patch and it was like, I have to read it again, honestly, to like pull back everything about it. Cause I have been so disconnected from StarCraft 2 for a while now that I'm not like committing everything to memory and like establishing it in stone in my brain. So I genuinely have forgotten probably like 75% of that patch that has come out, but I do remember a couple changes. And some of the changes that were coming out, like the thing where he's talking about nerfing Protoss, like for instance, they got rid of overcharge on battery, and now you can still make shield batteries, but they removed the ability to overcharge entirely, and instead now you can use the new ability instead, which was it gives a unit specifically like 50 mana or like 100 mana or some shit. It just gives a unit mana, and the only thing you can really utilize that fast in the early game is probably like an Oracle or a Sentry. So it's like you can have more uptime with your Oracle attacking, or you can have a Sentry doing more force fields or something like that. And I honestly was like, okay, a little bit of something new and different. It's going to try to make the game a little bit more fresh, a little bit fucking, a little different going on here. That sounds more interesting than it was before. I feel like the patch did make things a little different. And I feel like different is good. I feel like when the game never changes and it's just stale in its state, where everything is like the same every fucking time, it is super boring. But I mean, I feel like you definitely can get crazier with different changes as well. I think one thing that they mentioned as well in this video that I completely agree with, that I really, the pro gamer side of me kind of liked it, but then also the spectator side of me really didn't like it. Like, it's so true that a player hates playing on shit that's annoying and frustrating, and a viewer does like watching that, is getting rid of everything besides 2-player spawn maps. And you always, for a fact, know exactly where your opponent spawns every game in a tournament, where it's a 1v1 based tournament. You're always like, I know they're right there every time. It never changes. That's always where they're located. And you can like predict their scout paths as well because of that. With like an overlord, for instance, you can like tell when they're fucking coming, what they're doing with what is happening and like, you know, across the map. And it's just, it kind of makes the game not interesting, I feel. So, I don't know.
It's like, oh.
Again, I liked changes in the patch. I liked the fact that they're trying to shake shit up and change shit. But, yeah, I mean, I'm also not watching Pro StarCraft at the moment. So, my opinion is, I'm just going to throw it out there. My opinion might not be the most valid because I've even said before in the past that I feel like if you're not someone who is like in the pro scene, your opinion doesn't really matter that much when it comes to like balance, because the balance is literally pro scene stuff. If we're talking about balance, so if I'm disconnected and not watching, you know, like, oh my God, everyone's doing lurker fucking Hydra Viper type shit, and like the lurkers are getting pushed by such and such, like immortal time, these immortal walls or some shit. Like, I don't fucking know what's going on exactly.
The queen costs 25 more minerals. Did you see this in the patch? The queen, no. Okay, the most recent PTR patch, the queen got increased 25 minerals. Mm-hmm. And so they made the spore stronger, the spine stronger, the hatch 25 minerals cheaper. They basically Zerg got across the board buffs for 25 more minerals on the queen.
Nice. Minerals are the most important resource too, so that makes a lot of sense.
Dude,
you know why people mass insane. Queens? Do you know why people mass queens besides them just being
so easy?
Yeah, but also it's like the best mineral investment you can make, right?
It doesn't cost larva.
Transfuse, decent
it doesn't cost larva is why people make queens.
So adding an additional 25 minerals does absolutely fucking nothing, right?
No, obviously. But I mean, that's what they come out with, and it's
like if they added gas, that would be like, whoa, that would be a big change.
You can't have the people whose lives depend upon winning balance the game. It doesn't make sense. And like, the thing is, I really wish that there would be a person or an organization that would just take it over and stop having fucking endless meetings deciding these things. Like, honestly, okay, if I can just go ahead and say this, I would, if I took over StarCraft 2, first off, I would redo a lot of the balance shit. Like, I feel like it's gone a lot in the wrong direction. But I would also instantly bring the worker count, the starting worker count, down to 6, where it was in Wings of Liberty. 100% changes the game.
Yeah, that's what I thought he would say at some point, and I agree. I honestly don't think I'm not gonna lie. I feel like you could buff this. Like, I feel like, I'm just gonna throw it out there. Talking about a queen costing a little bit more minerals, and talking about a spore crawler doing a little bit more damage, and talking about a spine, like the things that they just mentioned, the Zerg buffs, but also queen costs more. I agree. These changes don't really fucking make a lot of sense, but at the same time, they don't really matter either. Like, they don't fucking mean shit at the end of the day. It's like little tiny balance tweaks that don't really do much to the game at all. I feel like to make the game way more interesting than it is right now is exactly what I feel like what Artosis just said just now. Fuck with the actual economy in the game, and you'll make the game, like, the game will, it's not going to be fixed forever, but it will be fixed for a little while. It'll be, trust me, like the game will be so much more interesting for like a year or 2 years if you only have 6 workers to start with. Like the entire grid of everything that works is going to just dissolve, and everyone has to rebuild shit from the ground up again, where they're like, oh fuck, like there's so many different ways I can die in the first 4 minutes of the game because all these different timings happen and I don't have enough to afford whatever I'm going for. Expanding is harder now. All these things are more difficult to set up. And then not only that, I feel like two changes that would change the game a lot. Like, and that's all you would have to do, really. And you don't have to go into like 55 different fucking balance changes where it's like, you can modify the stat of this. This does 1 more damage. This costs 10 more resources. That takes 3 more seconds to build. This requires this now for this tech upgrade. This takes another fucking 2 supply. You could do all these changes that mean, you know, whatever the fuck. They mean, you know, blah, blah, blah. Lots of different random things. It all adds up to the same thing, which is the game still ultimately comes to the same area that it's at right now. But if you do this right here, like a lot of maps in StarCraft 2, I'm just going to throw it out there and say it like this. I'm going to draw you something beautiful right now, guys. Okay. So this is a base in StarCraft 2. Okay. So like you have your main base right here. That's your main base, right? Right there. It's beautiful paint. I know. A lot of times in StarCraft 2, your natural does this right here. And then it's like you attack there. And it's like, oh, well, if I just go ahead and build my fucking, my 3 buildings right here, I can wall off. And I'm no longer going to get attacked. Stop making choke points at every single natural. That's one thing you could do to change the game and make it way more chaotic. Stop making every fucking map have a ramp into your main base would be another way you could make the game more chaotic. And then also cut back on the fucking mineral, the workers, the mineral workers, like the starting workers. And that will be another way you could make the game crazy. Obviously, there are things that people will be like instantly like, oh, if you get rid of the walls here, and if you get rid of the fucking ramp, like Zerglings are OP now. But at the same time, like, there is so much that can be different about the game too, if you changed all of these things. Like, let's just say it's a map that's more wide open, and let's say you scouted your opponent, and let's say you had like, there was some like fucking Hellion build or some shit, like some Hellion opener, and you have like a bunker and like a barracks wall, and like you create this, like, it's almost like you're playing Warcraft 3, where your base, like, it's built along the perimeter of your base. And that's how you build it. You don't just fucking build like behind your mineral line, and you don't hide your tech behind your fucking barracks every single game. You're not like always being like, you can't see what I'm doing, this is sacrificing Overlord. Like, it's, you could create different situations, and not every map has to be like this, but you don't have to go extreme on this either. You could have some maps could have a ramp, and some maps, instead of having a doorway that took 3 buildings to block it, maybe it goes all the way back to there, and now you need like 7 buildings to block it. So now it's like you have to make a choice. Do you want to block the front, or do you want to block the fucking near your base, like near the command center or near the nexus or near the hatchery or whatever? Like, there's a lot of things you could do just to change the entire flow of gameplay. That would, because the game itself, I'm not going to lie, has relatively decent balance. I feel like anyone that thinks the game is not balanced at all is a purist for their own race. They're like, I'm a Terran player, and I have to work 4 times as hard to beat fucking players that are 2 times below my skill level. Like, they're half the league that I am, but yeah, I have to work 5 times as hard to beat them in games. Oh man, like, Terran is hard as fuck. Or Protoss players, you know, like, they have to have 2 brain cells to actually A-move instead of 1 now. There's a lot of things you could do. And Zerg players, I don't know what Zerg players are, guys. We're just patch Zergs. Everyone sucks at Zerg. We just get patches, and we just win because patches are in our favor. Just like what I just recommended, how we get rid of all forms of terrain blocking and let Zerglings win every game. You know, patch Zerg style right there. No, but for real, I feel like if you change the layout of the game, change spawn locations, change base layout, and change economy, those 3 things would make the entire game more interesting. I feel like you could also add units to the game, like what Noregret recommended a second ago. But who the fuck is going to develop that? Let's be real. Like, no one even works at Blizzard anymore, guys. Unless we're talking about a Diablo 4 or a World of Warcraft microtransaction, no one is going to develop anything over there. So I think different maps and different economy could really make the game more interesting. And it really needs to get out of like the parameters of inside the box where every map is the fucking same with a different tile set. Literally. Like every map is genuinely the same. It's like 2 spawn location. You got your natural here. You got your third base right there. You got your fucking setup, dude. You got your little blockable natural. It's always the same.
So much. There's no early game.
You know,
there's no early game in StarCraft 2.
I think we've talked about this before, or I've definitely talked to this with pro gamers as well. But why the jump to 12 workers is basically the same thing as jumping to pylon, gate cyber, and a nexus on the bottom on the base. Like, so like, why didn't we just jump to 2 base, gate cyber, and warp gate on the way, right?
Yes.
Like, and the same thing with like pro or Zerg. It could be hatch, and a pool, right? Yeah. Because really, we've eliminated all of the 1 base options anyways.
Yes.
So it's exactly the same thing. There are no deviations that are actually valid based on the 12 worker
then someone will go ahead and point out the 2 times that it happened and it worked, and it's like, okay, that's not what we're talking about. No. If you have less workers, every choice means a lot more.
It does.
Like if you're actually going to send out an early worker to proxy or something. Right?
So I've said a lot of times in my Beat a Gym series, there was like like the content that I taught people with. There was something that I said a lot, and I was saying, and I also said it a lot when I would coach people, stuff like that. But the thing I would say was every single second in StarCraft 2, it like is more important than the next second. Literally, the very first second of the game and the second of the game, the third second of the game, they're all so fucking like each second is so valuable for what it is. Like 1 second is just extremely important at the start of the game. And it's because you're setting your build up. You're setting everything up. And it's even more important the longer that the setup takes. So like if the worker count got dropped back a lot more, every second is so fucking critical and so valuable. Like if you're at like the 13 minute and 33 second mark and you're going to go from 13:33 to 13:34, that second, sure, there could be a lot of things happening at that point in the game. Like a big attack might be happening or something like that. But like when it comes to your economy and your infrastructure and setting your build up, if like 1 worker fucking dies, you don't even fucking notice. You're just like, oh, well, I still got fucking my money flowing in like a champ here. I can just rebuild that worker and we're good to go. I don't even notice a difference in what's going on right now. But if a worker dies, or if a worker isn't being created, or if you're not like, if your worker is standing there with it would just not fucking mining because auto mining isn't a thing and it's just like waiting, that fucks your build up like dramatically. And it makes every timer in the game that is going to happen after it be later and later and later and later and later. And it creates openings where you can die. Like it's so incredibly important to have a proper good economy at the start of the game. And that phase of the game gets eliminated once you have things like a wall off. Once you have things like your tech is out and now it's like you can't get attacked anymore. Once you're basically all in proof, if you're like, oh, I can't die to all ins now because I've gotten to that stage where like I can't die to all ins basically anymore. Like my build is flowing here. It's no longer that important. Like it's obviously the follow up choices you're gonna make still have relevance. The whole game is relevant, but it like goes down a step in terms of like how much like things matter. Like things don't matter nearly as much because like the game shifts into another stage at that point. It becomes battle aces, literally. The game goes from like a thoughtful, thought-provoking RTS where you build shit, and it becomes battle aces faster. And battle aces is a good game. I'm not trying to talk shit about battle aces, but that battle aces has fucking 0 thought-provoking things about your economy. Pretty much. It's just a micro arena. Like it takes away what the game actually has in the early game, where like you have to actually like outmaneuver your opponent or like outthink your opponent, or like it creates like it takes away all of the fucking potential ways where you can harass each other with value. There are obviously ways you can still harass in StarCraft 2 in the current day and age with 12 workers, but they're pretty fucking repetitive and they're pretty common, and it's pretty like for instance, how many times have you guys seen a fucking Reaper attack 4 Zerglings? And then a Queen pops out, and then the Reaper runs away. Like it's the level of repetitiveness is incredibly fucking high when the economy is higher, because it takes away the early game like dramatically.
Right, or you're going to go scout. It costs you a lot more percentage-wise of your income, so it hurts more.
Yep.
Like these things are important. So I would bring it back down to the 6 workers. I would probably change how the minerals work right now, where it's like the half patches and stuff, but not 100% sure on that. Like, and I would bring back 4-player maps, 3-player maps, maybe 5-player maps. Like, have some variety in there where you can't, and then someone will be like, oh, well, and push the glasses back and be like, you know what? Now suddenly there's this rush that can't be stopped. No. Stop that. This is like the poison that could be spewed into brains to get you to think that this is the only way StarCraft 2 can be, and it's not. And I wish that someone would change these things. And how much more exciting would it be with a different way, where there's actually some chances for other early game things to happen?
By the way, we all played StarCraft 2 from the beginning, right? There were periods of time where this unstoppable rush happened, right? Like this is actually the most fun I've ever had in StarCraft. Now that I think about it, like there were builds everyone would kind of stumble upon them. They'd be super good, right? Everyone would like lose to them. Like remember 7 Roach Rush and shit. Like, oh, that was so good, and then eventually it falls out because you can defend it. Or like, oh, Blue Flame Hellion pushes were really good. Yeah. 3 pylon walls. You remember that? I mean, they put the supply depot there because that was kind of imba. Yeah. But point being, there were many Broodlord Infestor. There are many different builds / comps that were kind of imba, and figuring it out. Maybe at some point it becomes clear that it is completely imbalanced, but we can't jump to that conclusion. Like, for example, Broodlord Infestor was imba, but yeah, like I'm okay with periods of time where there's some imbalance and there's some understanding. I feel like there's too much effort in preventing all imbalanced from the beginning, if that makes sense, and not enough exploring. So, like, for example, do you remember when we were talking about the Mothership patch, and we were like kind of excited? We're like, oh shit, the Mothership might actually be like a decent unit. And then we kept scrolling, and it was like, oh, just kidding. This is the horror. They like reverse all of its coolness, right? Like, come on, can we not make an imbalanced Mothership for a little bit and see what it does? You know?
yeah.
Like, let's have some fun. Let's bring back Time Warp, or not Time Warp. What was the
Vortex.
Black hole? Do you remember
Vortex?
The Archon toilet?
Yeah, the Vortex.
Like, let's have fun with some of that stuff again. Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Honestly,
Archon toilet was fun. I mean, it was stupid, and we should have played around with it, but it was fun.
Yeah. I really wish that
it was also a excitement moment for a game.
Give some life.
People would freak their fucking asses out when it would happen, just like a nuke.
That much different. I was thinking, what would be cool is if there was actually like a Wings of Liberty league. That would be kind of hype if you had all the pros actually playing Wings of Liberty for a few months, like against each other, and see what that looks like before every unit moves so fast. Like, you have no medevac boost back then, and you have 6 worker starts and 4-player maps and 5-player maps and stuff like that. I think something like that would be really, really cool.
I agree. I still thinking about some of the most hype moments in StarCraft 2 for me are those moments of like an Archon toilet hitting,
Dude, the Kiwi-Kaki,
like,
up in the middle of the night watching that, I was like, damn, this is so sick.
We don't have that shit anymore, right?
Yeah.
Or at least I don't feel that same type of like, oh my god, that could happen, or oh, if he just gets the sick Archon toilet and come back, or like, there is, once you start seeing the needle going in one player's favor, it could be like the next 20 minutes they're dying. Like, we could literally watch someone with a 10,000 bank sit there and literally whittle them away for 45 minutes and never have been at a disadvantage, but they can't kill them, because if they do, then they are losing their advantage. It's just so boring, honestly. Like, it's so boring to watch someone with a 10k bank not commit because they don't want to have that resource effectiveness shift in the other person's favor. So they basically have to play out.
I don't think you need to bring back Archon toilet necessarily. If they did, I would think that would be fine as well. But I do think that the game honestly does need more RNG and more excitable moments. I do think that is a thing. And I feel like right now the only RNG in StarCraft 2 that really does exist is like if someone has bad micro and they like let Widow Mines blow up their army, and it's like, oh fuck. Oh shit, I didn't move my Zergling out of the way. Dang it. Oh, well, there you go. There you have it. There goes a big detonation. But a lot of times players are so fucking good that like they can out micro the RNG. So there is no RNG. Like they've literally developed RNG out of the game mostly in StarCraft 2 to this at this day and age. And I 100% think RNG is a little bit more exciting to watch. It creates moments that are just fucking exciting because you really don't know what's going to happen. And I would 100% agree that StarCraft 2 needs more of that.
But an hour-long game. Like, I don't know. It just sucks, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't think I have too many other thoughts on it.
No.
Yeah.
I think
I'll just double down on what I said a minute ago, where I really feel like if they get out of the safety net of where they think they have to like make maps the same exact fucking format every single time, where it's always like your base is literally like your natural is a wall off point, and it's like the terrain protects you, and then your main has a ramp into the main, and then on top of that, like if they revamp that a little bit, create some, like, again, not every map has to be fucking just flat openness, but there can definitely be some interesting things that could exist. I feel like the most creative that they've gotten in StarCraft 2 for the last fucking 6 years, 7 years now, something like that, is they add in mineral walls that you can mine out near someone's base. It's the only thing they fucking do that is like taking any sort of a risk when it comes to terrain. It's like there'll be a resource wall here where you can mine it out if you bring like fucking 10 workers, or if you bring 5 workers or 4 workers or 6 workers, depending on how many patches deep it goes. And it's like, that's it. Other than that, you're back to the same generic fucking ramp into the natural, ramp into the main, doorways, wall offs, and it's like always like 3 buildings deep, and you're done. And again, I think wall offs are completely fine. I don't think they should get rid of all maps that have that style. I just think that every single map having that exact format is not very interesting. I feel like you could definitely have other maps that like, let me give you an example. Here's an example. This is a kind of map that will never, it just does not exist in like this day and age, I feel like, for StarCraft 2. And it's a map like Metalopolis, where in Metalopolis, the entire fucking side of your base was a Reaper jump spot. And then not only that, if you took a natural, if you would try to take a natural, your entire natural, if you were to build buildings from like the ramp all the way around to like in front of your nexus or your command center or whatever, and then block off the other side, it would take like 30 fucking buildings or like 25 buildings. And if you were going to take, instead, if you were just going to make a direct line to like the command center or the nexus itself, and then make a line to the wall, it would still take like 12 buildings. It would take a fuckload of buildings to cover that, because it was a big open area. And big open areas create potential for all-ins. It doesn't guarantee you have to do one, but it creates potential to do one. And I feel like that in itself is interesting. The fact that there is choice that exists in the game, and you can do more than one thing every fucking time. And also, when economy is lower, it just creates more steps in a staircase where you can create timings that you can attack in, where it's like you can do like a 9-worker timing. You could do a fucking 6-worker timing. You could do a 12-worker timing. You could do a 15-worker timing. You could do a 30-worker timing. You could do a 50-worker timing, 80-worker timing. You could do any kind of worker timing you want to do. But the bigger that number gets, the more irrelevant that those steps get. And the more it's like, when you take one step, it's like your foot lands on 5 steps at once. Like if you're talking about an 80-worker timing, you could literally make the timing almost the exact same, similar, with like 75 to 80 workers or 85 to 80 workers. Somewhere in those thresholds where it's like 5 workers does not really matter as much for like a difference there. Whereas if you go back, if we're going to, because it's like these workers are like very small percentages of your entire economy at that point. But if you go back, and we're talking about the difference of like a 6-worker timing to an 11-worker timing, that is a fucking massive difference. So when the worker count does start lower, it does create a lot more variance in early game. And early game variance is a big part of the game overall. It creates a lot more exciting interactions that can exist in the game. And it also creates a lot more variance that what they're talking about, where like a high-level player can just win repeatedly over and over and over and over and over. It creates a lot more of windows of opportunity, windows of opportunity to be killed in by a player who may honestly be like a lesser skilled player who's going to go for an all-in. And I feel like it's not even just about lesser players beating better players. It's also about just build diversity. It creates opportunities for like more builds to exist and actually flow into a rotation of builds instead of just like one build where it's like, this is the build. You have to do this build because it's the best. And it beats all forms of all in. Like, it just creates more diversity in the game and it makes it more of an interesting experience to be a part of. So I definitely think that needs to, if they really were to like rehaul the game, I feel like that would be a great idea.
I think the only thing in terms of thoughts, and we talked about it a bit as well, I think Battle Aces will have this problem too. Like, I don't see the volatility there.
Battle Aces is incredibly casual.
We were talking about, remember how volatile StarCraft 1 was, or StarCraft 2 was, and then how, I guess, figured out it became. My biggest fear is Battle Aces will actually rush that, right? Like, there might be very few compositions, ultimately. There might be very few relevant playstyles over time.
I also think, I only agree, right now, I'm just going to throw this out there. I only agree with what Noregret is saying right now when you're talking about 1 versus 1 Battle Aces. I think Battle Aces is incredibly more fun in 2v2. And I really think Battle Aces should really try to incorporate 3v3 or 4v4. And I feel like they should actually be supported modes competitively. I feel like Battle Aces is fucking a great starting point as a team game. I feel like as a 1v1 based experience, it will 100% become repetitive as fuck. And you'll play, it's like the Battle Aces in 1v1 will be as simple as this. Our opponent is expanding. Oh, time to kill him. He fucked up. He doesn't understand. I have Wasp. And if he expands, I can just hold the button down and kill him now. Our opponent's tacking up. Oh, I already know what his strat's going to be. Let's go fucking hard count it right now. I already know how this plays out here. I have to do, I got to make the fucking, the timing attack to hit his third base when he hits the tech up button. And then when he hits the tech up button, I attack his third base. And then every single time he makes the same units to defend his third base. And then his third base dies because I have the counter units to his units. And then his tech comes online and he doesn't have the economy to support it. So he's dead now. Like 1v1 is definitely mapped out in Battle Aces. It's not that thought-provoking. I feel like once you play it for a while and you're good at it, like once you get good at Battle Aces, you can literally telegraph what is going to happen before it happens. And when a game turns into that, it gets fucking boring. It can absolutely get boring. But in 2v2, 3v3, 4v4, anything 2v2 plus in Battle Aces can absolutely be interesting. I 100% believe Battle Aces can be so fucking fun and interesting in a format that is more than 1v1. So I feel like that is what I would say if I was part of this conversation. The game has so many more variables in more than 1v1. And there's so many more compositions you can make as well. Like Battle Aces is also talking about how they're going to keep trying to fucking release units constantly for the game. Like it's almost like Hearthstone with card packs. Like they're going to be making, I imagine Battle Aces is going to have a triple digit unit count overall in its like roster of units over time. I do think it's going to go above 100 units in that game. And I feel like there's going to be a lot of potential for a lot of combinations of units to exist in different kinds of timing attacks that can exist, different kind of techs that can exist, different kind of rushes that can exist, like different kind of like turtle like situations that can exist. Like what if somebody's like, I got mass mortars and destroyers, and the other guy's got some fucking like frontline like chaff and like fucking predators, and somehow they can also deal with snipers or some shit. And it's like they have superior siege in every way and splash and single target, and it's like really hard to break a spot or something because like this combination is crazy. Like there's a lot of things that can exist simply because there's a lot more variables that it's a team game. And I think Battle Aces is not going to be a 1v1 experience specifically like StarCraft was. So that I think that is very important to think about.
Without basically all information being given, there might be basically one way to play. Like we'll see.
I think the overarching reason for this has to do with as economy management becomes easier, it allows way more time to be spent on like strategically what's going on. that's a big thing in Brood War, where like you can play strategically incorrectly, but if you have your management down, then you can still win like that. Whereas you have like the top pros all macro very similarly in a lot of these newer.
Oh my god! I just read Artosis' chat right there as the cum leaked. Oh, never mind. Different conversation.
Games, and that just it kind of like levels that playing field, like, and yeah, I think that's the big differentiator.
Oh my god!
There.
Another thing though, I just thought, I feel like RNG in Battle Aces would be really frustrating, like more frustrating than RNG in for StarCraft, for example, because I feel like Battle Aces is such a balanced game in terms of like, it's such a, I guess, equal or balanced game that, for example, if RNG means you lose a battle by X%, you might never win the game, right? Like, it's very possible that if you have one bad fight in Battle Aces, you cannot recover. So I'm not sure how I feel about RNG. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I feel like
StarCraft 2, I just feel like RNG, you
I think it's a team game.
can be aware of it and
it's a totally different, it's a 100% different experience than 1v1.
You never come back, you just kind of die.
Well, RNG could go the other way as well.
Yeah, I guess, true.
Yeah, comeback mechanics are an important thing. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with those.
I'm just going to throw it out there. I really hope Battle Aces team games do catch on, and I really hope that there is more interest in team games for Battle Aces, and I hope that tournaments actually prioritize team games for Battle Aces, and I hope teams that start recruiting players for rosters, for team game format for Battle Aces. I hope it's not like everyone in RTS just once again wants to be super antisocial and only have a roster of 1v1 solo players, and then everyone's a fucking mercenary, and then we just play 1v1 again. Like, I do think if Battle Aces actually just like fucking hones in on 1v1 and that's it, I think that game is going to suffer immensely if that ends up being the case. And if 2v2 is like, if it's nothing ever above 2v2, and then it's just casual as fuck experience, like team games where it's similar to like what StarCraft 2 was. Like StarCraft 2 1v1 was like, this is the real deal. This is the shit. This is what you came here for. This is why you play this game. And then if you play anything besides 1v1 in StarCraft 2, it's like, oh, you can be casual if you want. Yeah, you want to be casual? Go ahead. Go play with your friends, play with your family, play with random people. Who gives a fuck? No one cares. No one gives a shit. Team games don't matter. They don't matter at all. So if you want to just like spend your time doing something that doesn't matter just for fun, go ahead. That's kind of the attitude towards team games in StarCraft 2. And if they do that, the same thing in Battle Aces, if the community just like refuses to like adapt to playing team games, and if the developers also don't incentivize team games in any way, I feel like I'll be internally a little bit sad, because I really feel like Battle Aces is a team game experience at its core. That is what it excels at. It is literally not a 1v1 experience. Even though it can be, I feel like everything they're talking about where the game will get stale and boring, it will happen in Battle Aces as well, in 1v1. I really do feel like that'll happen as well. But I don't think... I hope to God Battle Aces doesn't just turn into a fucking 1v1 game.
But
I'll be so sad if it does.
That's really frustrating, though.
Of course. Well, you need to have some frustrating things, because that's also fun for the person who gets it. So.
And for the viewers, for sure.
Yeah, there's not much top decking in StarCraft 2 right now.
No. No. I just wish we could... We need to incorporate randomness. We need to incorporate hooks and comeback mechanics, and we cannot pander to pro gamers, because they're the last people that should be deciding what is interesting to watch, basically.
I agree.
Ultimately, esports are for watching, not for playing.
I agree.
So do not listen to pro gamers if you're making a game. You need to actually listen to your audiences. Not fully, but you need to take into account more.
I disagree. Don't listen.
I think honestly, anybody who has an argument that goes, okay, so like right now, my win percentage is like 57%. And what I want is I want you to change the game so that win rate that's 57% can be 75%. I want a win rate that's now 83%. I want a win rate that is going to be 100% ideally, but I'll be willing to accept 90%. Like anyone who has arguments that are focused on concepts like that, where it's like, how can we make everything always the same so I can predict what's going to happen before it happens every single time, so that I can then prepare for it and always be prepared for it whenever it exists? Like anything that is in the grounds of that or the realm of that is incredibly bad information and incredibly horrible for game design, for it to be interesting at all. And pro gamers will absolutely fucking have that mindset because winning means they make money, and making money means they can do it as a job.
Your audiences don't fucking know.
Like, it's in their best interest to make money.
Making the game, let someone with a strong vision push forward.
Yes, I'm just saying. I'm not saying like don't listen to a single chatter. I'm just saying you'll know what what the audiences actually want. You know, you'll know what. For example,
it's just to say it simply, it's a conflict of interest to listen to a pro gamer talk about balance because they're going to give you their perspective on what they need to win more, so that they can win more money.
Archon Toilet was fun, right? Audiences loved it, right? So
it's gone, of course.
Of course, yeah.
It's gone.
So, and also some things that were really unfun. I mean, sometimes they overlapped, like Swarmhost. Literally nobody liked that. Swarmhost for Swarmhost, nobody liked that. Pro gamers didn't like that, and the audiences didn't like that.
Archon Toilet was fun. I think Archon Toilet was exciting. I do think it was. Yeah. It was a hype moment where you're like, it's like someone's like riding on the edge and they're gonna fall off maybe. That was a good video. I feel like that was a good video. Yeah. Anyways, to give you guys my final recap on everything, I agree a lot with what they talked about. I honestly think it was, you know, it was. Again, a lot of points were made where maybe some of them I do and don't agree with, but a lot of them I do agree with. And I honestly feel like I don't think it'll ever happen either. I highly doubt this is going to happen. And just to throw it out there, just to burst the Santa Claus bubble for anyone who might think that StarCraft 2 is still being developed to this very day. I fully, like, I'm pretty disconnected now with StarCraft 2. And I have been ever since the year 2019. Like, I don't talk to fucking anyone at Blizzard anymore. And I feel like the reason why is because nobody fucking works there for StarCraft anymore. That's honestly not really a joke. But just throwing it out there, the odds of Blizzard developing anything major for StarCraft 2 is incredibly unlikely. But in the off chance that we could get something developed, I do think that a smaller economy, like what Artosis is talking about in this video, completely agree. I think that would make the game so much more interesting than it is already, because it would actually create a lot more of a lot more possibilities that can exist in the early game, and because you're literally skipping so much of the aggression potential that could exist. That is one major change that would make the game better. Another change that would make the game better is more potential places where someone can exist on the map, not always having a map being the exact same, where it's like, you know, point A and point B, did you spawn, which one did you spawn at? And now I know exactly where you are every game, and I can prepare to scout properly every time as to like what are the spots you can do things at, and so on and so on. And then I also think not only like spawn location wise map updates, I really do think base layout updates should be changed too. And it really should be changed in the sense that some of the maps should honestly just favor different types of builds. And it doesn't mean you have to play that way on that map, but I really do feel like it would be a lot more interesting seeing a game where you go, wow, these guys like almost killed each other at the start of the game, and now it's becoming a macro game and it's getting fucking weird, and the game is at a weird stage that we don't really ever see very often. And you get a game like that develops into something fucking wild, where it's like, oh dude, like there's like this like crazy, this guy's going for this and that guy's going for this, and it's something that you barely ever see, as opposed to going, oh, okay, we just skipped the aggressive part because both players have you know, thrown in the towel on any form of aggression. They know it's not going to work, so they're just going to do their timings that they're just going to go for, which I've seen 95 games out of 100 on average. I've seen it many times. But how will this guy micro it? Oh wow, let's fucking find out. Like, it definitely gets really repetitive. So I feel like those things would absolutely make the game more interesting. And these changes would be a lot more interesting as well over balance changes. Like, fuck balance changes. Balance changes can be done here and there whenever something is dramatically fucking messed up. And if something really does need help, where it's like, this unit fucking sucks, or this unit's way too good, you can always tweak things, and that's fine. But I really don't think that balance changes is what the game needs to really become exciting and interesting and fun again. I really do feel like it needs a overhaul of the things I just talked about and the things that they were talking about as well. I completely agree. Economy, but most of all, economy would change the game dramatically. If they only wanted to change one thing and that was it, literally go back to 6 workers as well. I 100% agree with that. That would be a humongous change to the game. But anyways, yeah, I guess I'll end it there. Good video. Nice recommendation to Das Schnitzel Sc2. Good recommendation. All right, guys, thank you. And I'll see you in the next video. Whatever it is, peace.